Hello and welcome back to The Critique. We are diving straight into a video commentary script analyzing the political shift of commentators Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur on Candace Owens, arguing their new stance is driven by the Israel-Palestine conflict. So let's get right into it, starting with the rhetoric and the overall tone.
This is such a juicy topic. The raw material here, the clips, the tweets, it's all incredibly volatile. But as I was reading the draft, I kept hitting a wall with the language choices.
Yeah.
The script clearly wants the narrator to be the sane one in the room.
Right.
Looking at these two chaotic figures.
Right.
But the vocabulary, the words being used, they're actively fighting against that goal.
I noticed that too. It felt like the script was getting dragged down into the same mud it was trying to point at. There's a lot of name calling right from the jump.
Exactly, and that's the core issue. You can't claim the moral or intellectual high ground while you're screaming insults. The draft is just peppered with terms like sweaty pig, ogre, goblin, and dingbat. At one point, Kasparian is called a psychopathic lunatic. Now look, if you're a diehard fan who already hates these people, maybe that feels cathartic.
Sure.
But for a persuasive video, it's a credibility killer.
It does feel a bit like a comment section, not a critique. But let me play devil's advocate for a sec. The author is clearly angry. They see hypocrisy. Isn't that emotional heat like part of the appeal for this kind of content?
Heat is fine. Righteous indignation is fine. Juvenile insults are not.
Okay.
There's a huge difference. When you call someone a goblin, you're not analyzing their politics anymore. You're attacking them. It signals to a neutral listener, someone on the fence, that you might be emotionally dysregulated.
Ah, I see.
If the whole premise is, look how irrational Cenk and Anna are, you can't prove that by acting irrational yourself. You just alienate the people you're trying to win over.
That makes a lot of sense. You lose the jury because you look just as unhinged. So how do we fix this without, making it sound like a dry academic paper? It needs to keep its punch.
Absolutely not. We want it sharp. The trick is to replace the character insults with rigorous behavioral descriptions.
Okay.
Let the facts be the insult. For example, right now the script says, Anna the goblin, Kasparian. It just sounds petty.
Yeah.
Imagine rewriting that to something like Kasparian, whose current defense of Owens directly contradicts her own documented history. That stings way more because it's undeniable.
It forces her to argue with her past self, not with your insult.
Precisely. And with Cenk Uygur calling him a sweaty pig or ogre, that's just lazy ad hominem. Instead, describe the behavior that's so frustrating.
So what would that sound?
Maybe something like Uygur, who frequently utilizes bombastic, aggressive rhetoric to browbeat his opponents. You're painting a picture of a bully without becoming one yourself.
Right.
And for the insanity claims, don't just say, she is insane, you dingbat. That convinces nobody.
You have to show the receipts.
Use the material you already have in the script. The author mentions Owens' comments about Hitler and globalization. Use that.
Okay.
You could say this isn't just a difference of opinion. This is a demonstrable historical distortion. That phrase carries so much more weight than just, she's crazy. It makes the narrator the adult in the room.
That pivot from name-calling to describing behavior is huge. It actually makes the script feel more dangerous to its subject because it's harder to just brush off. Okay, speaking of brushing things off, let's talk about the evidence. The script tries really hard to prove these commentators are lying, but the method it uses is, well, it's a bit unusual.
It is, and I think it's probably the weakest link in the entire chain of evidence. There's this heavy reliance on what I'd almost call like amateur physiognomy.
Right.
The script keeps telling the audience to look at their eyebrows, look at their mouth, or watch their micro-expressions to catch them in a lie.
Look at his shifty eye, that kind of.
Exactly that. You can tell he's lying because he blinked. And here's the problem. In the hierarchy of evidence, that's at the very bottom. It's so subjective.
One person's shifty eye is another person's reading a teleprompter.
Or just bad studio lighting. If your main proof is, look at that smirk, your entire argument can just collapse when a viewer says, I don't see it.
It really feels like a distraction, especially because, the hard evidence is right there, sitting next to all these body language.
That's the frustration. The script mentions the Canary Mission clips, the old broadcasts. That stuff is gold.
Yeah.
We need to pivot entirely from analyzing how they look to analyzing what they said. Forget the eyebrows. Look at the transcripts.
So instead of saying, look at her face when she talks about Candace, what's the alternative?
Do a side-by-side. This is the show don't tell rule for video. Quote the 2021 clip where Kasparian calls Owens a sellout and scum of the earth. Play that audio, then immediately cut to the 2025 clip where she's saying we don't have to denounce her. And don't talk over it. Just let that contradiction hang in the air.
That silence would be deafening.
It's lethal, and you can make it even stronger by mapping the timeline. Don't vaguely attribute the change to them being fake. Give us a calendar.
Oh, interesting.
Say, in 2021, the standard was X. In late 2023, the Israel-Palestine conflict escalated. By 2025, the standard became Y. You're correlating their shift with a specific geopolitical event. That's an intellectual argument. Look at his eyebrows is a playground argument.
That timeline idea really grounds the theory. It moves it from just a conspiracy to a real political analysis. Okay, so now I want to touch on how the script handles their defense. Kasparian apparently claims there's a concerted effort to make Candace Owens look bad. The script addresses this, but I felt like it brushed it off way too quick.
It does, and this is a really common trap in this kind of writing. It's basically dismissal without refutation.
Right.
The script quotes Kasparian, and the narrator just responds with, "What effort is that exactly?" and then goes right back to calling them insane goblins.
So it's basically just saying, nah, you're crazy.
Exactly. And the problem is, if you just say you're crazy when someone claims there's a conspiracy, you inadvertently reinforce their narrative. You haven't proven there isn't a concerted effort. You've just mocked the idea.
I see. So you leave the door open for their fans to think, maybe there is a concerted effort and this guy is part of it. How do we slam that door shut?
We use a technique called steel manning. You take their argument, seriously just for a moment, so you can dismantle it completely with evidence.
Okay, give me an example of how that would sound here.
So you acknowledge the claim. You say, Kasparian argues there's a concerted effort to smear Owens. That's a serious accusation, so let's look at the source of the smear. Then you bring back the Hitler comments. You argue the effort isn't external, it's internal. When Owens says Hitler's problem was just globalism, she creates the insanity narrative herself.
Oh, that's good. You're turning their own defense against them.
Precisely. You're showing the reputational damage is self-inflicted. Instead of asking a rhetorical question like, how are you going to reframe that? You state affirmatively why it can't be reframed.
Right.
You say, no amount of context can reframe a defense of domestic policy regarding Hitler. The concerted effort is simply the public reacting to our own word. You see the difference? One is mocking, the other is disproving. Logic beats volume.
That really elevates the whole critique. It makes the narrator sound so much more confident. Okay, let's shift to a section that I think really drags the piece down. The money talk. The script makes a big deal about them lying for a living, but then it gets bogged down in this really defensive tangent about the narrator's own funding.
Ugh, yeah. This was the part where I felt the script really lost its way.
Totally.
The narrator accuses them of being paid handsomely to lie, which, okay, it's a standard accusation. But then the script spends like 3 minutes defending the narrator's own income.
Yeah.
There's this denial of a specific $7,000 payment, a breakdown of fans versus lobbying groups. It just goes on and on.
It felt like I walked into the middle of a private argument I knew nothing about.
It creates a tu quoque dynamic. That's Latin for you too. It turns a critique of ideology into a squabble about accounting.
Right.
A listener is just thinking, I came here for political hypocrisy. Why am I listening to an audit of your bank account? It makes the narrator look sensitive and defensive.
Yeah, it definitely muddies the water. So the fix here seems pretty aggressive. Just cut it all?
Cut it. Burn it. Delete the entire anecdote about the $7,000. It's irrelevant to the thesis. But beyond just cutting that, we should refine the accusation against the targets.
How so?
Well, accusing them of taking direct bribes, paid to lie, is really hard to prove unless you have their contracts.
Which we don't.
Right. So pivot to a sociological argument, audience capture.
Okay.
Audience capture isn't some shady guy with a sack of cash. It's a creator slowly shifting their opinions to please the crowd that pays their bills.
That's a much more sophisticated take. It's not they are criminals, it's they are slaves to their analytics.
Exactly. You argue they have shifted their opinions to align with an increasingly anti-Israel demographic to maintain their relevance and view counts. It explains the corruption without needing a smoking gun. It's cleaner, it's smarter, and it keeps the focus entirely on them.
Keeps the spotlight exactly where it needs to be. Okay, finally, let's talk big picture. Structure. The whole central thesis here is that Israel is the wedge issue driving this bizarre alliance. But reading the draft, I just felt like I was going in circles.
The insight is brilliant. The Israel derangement syndrome theory that they hate Israel so much they'll ally with anyone. even Candace Owens. That's the strongest point in the entire script.
It is.
But right now, it's just buried under repetition. The script loops, it makes a point about Israel, then goes back to calling them dingbats, then complains about the concerted effort. It feels like a rant, not a case.
It lacks that forward momentum. You want to feel like you're being led to an inevitable conclusion.
Exactly. You want to structure it like a legal argument, a documentary. I'd suggest breaking it into 3 distinct acts: the before, the catalyst, and the after.
Walk us through that. What does the before look like?
You start clearly in 2021. Play the clips of them just hating Owens. Establish their baseline moral standard. We do not tolerate anti-Semitism. Establish that firmly.
Okay, and then the catalyst.
You as the variable that changed everything. You show how this became their singular obsession. That explains the why.
And finally, the after.
The after is the 2025 stand. You show them embracing Owens. And then the synthesis. You conclude by saying, this proves that for Kasparian and Uygur, the enemy of their enemy is their friend, even if that friend promotes ideas they claim to despise. That structure leads the listener by the hand. By the end, the conclusion isn't just an opinion. It's a fact you've built brick by brick.
That's so much more powerful than just saying, look at these hypocrites. It tells a story of corruption.
It turns a rant into a narrative, and narratives are what change minds.
Okay, so let's recap the battle plan for this rewrite. We've got a script with a really strong core, this Israel wedge issue theory, but it's hiding behind some bad habits.
Right. Step 1, scrub the dehumanizing language. No more goblins or ogres. We're taking the high road to keep our credibility.
Right.
Step 2, ditch the lie detector body language stuff. Replace it with side-by-side transcript comparisons. Show the words, don't tell us about the eyebrows.
Step 3.
Step 3 is the steel man. Don't just dismiss their defense. Use their own words to dismantle the concerted effort idea.
Okay.
Step 4, remove that defensive financial tangent. Nobody cares about the $7,000. Focus on audience capture instead.
And finally, the structure.
A linear narrative. Before, catalyst, after. Build the case so that by the end, the hypocrisy is undeniable.
This is going to transform the piece from an angry reaction video into a really serious piece of political commentary. We would love to see you take a crack at this rewrite. Apply these changes, sharpen the focus, and send it back to us. We're really excited to see the next draft. Thanks for listening to The Critique.